Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Under Review podcast. I am your host, Todd, and alongside me is my co-host, Marty.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies.
So, week 4 is brought a lot of questions. But before we get into some of those questions and some of those games, let's take a moment. Let's hear a word from our sponsor.
This episode of the Under Review podcast is brought to you by Chuck's Heating and Air. Chuck has over 40 years of service and experience with residential services. He services most makes and models. He is Alabama licensed, bonded, and insured, and locally owned and operated. Are you hot and you're supposed to be cool? Are you cool and you're supposed to be hot? Then you've got a problem. Call Chuck. Area code 256-892-2757. Again, 256-892-2757. Chuck's Heating and Air.
And I always want to thank Judd Dickinson for those great sound bites that he provides us week in, week out.
Thank you, Jetty.
But before we get started, it's what a week. A lot to go over. A lot of ups for some teams, a lot of downs for some teams. A lot of questions were answered, and then some rose some questions. Looking at a general perspective of this week, how did you feel about this week?
Like we said before we went into coming into this week, there were a lot of questions. It was a good week of football, depending on what side of the ball you're on.
Yeah,
I thought a lot of teams didn't play to their potential, as in some ranked teams that we have that we'll definitely discuss. But now that we can say this week is over, I'm excited to get through this so we can get to week 5 where it's really going to be the best week of football so far this year.
Right, and let's just start in with our first matchup. As the Kentucky Wildcats won big over the Ohio Bobcats. Yeah, I said that right. 41-6. The bounce back Cats in this one.
Yeah, most definitely. I didn't really per se. I thought they'd play a little bit better since what they showed us against Georgia. But Brock Vandagriff played extremely well. No touchdowns, but he played well enough to get the win. The receiving team and the defensive side played really good enough to put 41 points on the board.
Right.
But I think I felt like I could have seen more out of Vandagriff, especially the performance he had at Georgia.
Yeah, Brock Vandagriff, 17 for 24, 70%, 237 passing yards, and Dane Key, 7 receptions, 145 yards. So their touchdowns came mostly from the running back core.
Which is good to have, especially if you can establish a strong running game in any SEC game. It's really good. I know this wasn't an SEC game, but that could help them later on. Once when they hit Ole Miss and Vandy and Florida coming up.
Right. Demi Sumo Karangbe with 2 touchdowns there in the second quarter. Field goals. Pick 6 on the defensive side. Maxwell Harrison just kept them in the game.
Yeah, they really flew to the ball a lot like we did see against the Georgia. So that much was to be expected. But for me, I expected a little more from Vandagriff as far as, touchdown-wise. Still 237 yards is not bad in the air. But maybe he wasn't throwing as well because his running game was so strong and steady. So looking for more of him against Ole Miss next week, which Ole Miss has a really good defense. So be a good test for him.
Definitely. This one's you.
Oh, this one's me?
Yeah.
Okay. Had number 16 LSU versus the UCLA Bruins, 34-17 in favor of the Tigers. So the headline is Tiger Town. I mean, it was all LSU. I mean, Nussmeier really, really played an outstanding game. 32 for 44, 72% completion ratio on 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, what a big game for him. I mean, they at the 16 seed, I think they played right where a 16 team would play. Nothing just overly aggressive about it, but I liked it here.
Definitely, like you said, just 32 for 44, 72 yards, 352 passing yards, 72% completion rate, 352 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mason Taylor, 8 receptions, 77 yards. And then Whit Weeks on that defense, having 7 tackles and 3 solos. I watched, like I said, I didn't watch a lot of games. I watched 3 maybe total. 3 total matchups probably. Because, like I said, we went to the Auburn game. We'll get down later in that one. But from just looking at the stats, Nussmeier breaks the 1,000 yards on the season with that 352. They just look like a very well put out team. Even it was close at some points.
Right.
I did think UCLA might have a chance there for a little bit, and then Nussmeier and them just moseyed on out with it.
Yeah, well, they finished out with 454 total yards. Nussmeier with the 352, and then the running game only put up 102 yards, which is not terrible. But again, if you're that pass heavy right there and can do that much, your running game really don't need to really try to show out.
Yeah, like I said, which I'm sorry about this week, guys. Like I said, I really haven't done a lot of stats, so I really can't tell you. But I only watched 3 games. So if I seem like I'm out of the loop a little bit, I am. I'm just going based off numbers. And
I'm just scatterbrained, so.
Yeah, and the 3 games that I actually did watch, I can relate more to those. But like I said, I'm sorry. It just kind of spending 12 hours on the road and at the game, it, kind of scatterbrained a little bit. So if y'all just bear with us a little bit, we're going to get through all these.
So technically we're done with that game, but let's shout out real quick to somewhere we messed up on the pre-show. Was Texas.
Yeah, I didn't even go back and listen. Did I miss them?
I went back and listened to it, but I was just listening and just having a good time. I don't remember writing any stats on them, so I don't think we did.
Dang. I did.
Because I'm looking at both of our sheets for the week 4, and we missed the Longhorns altogether. So
that is wild, which that's not supposed to happen. But
on this podcast, it's going to happen. So
well, yeah, you got to think with our lives and the way we're doing everything, we're actually just lucky to get recordings in at this point.
Somebody had to go eat all night.
It's Texas Day Brazil, man.
Yeah, but Dad cooked on the grill, so
we don't get invited to those.
You know where I'm at. Right.
Texas A&M squeaking out a win against Bowling Green at Kyle Field, 62-20 or 26-20. Good Lord!
See, already. Well, on this one, it's really Texas A&M. You're the number 25 team in the nation, and I thought you played pretty crappy to get a win. But the bright side of that, I thought Marcel Reed again had another stellar game for himself. The quarterback led in passing and in rushing with 91 yards.
Yep.
And for it to only be a 26-20 game, man, they're going to have to pick that up for national play and for SEC play coming up.
You want to know the wildest stat before I get into the rest of these stats? You want to know the craziest thing?
Give me something silly.
They jumped up a spot in the rankings.
I seen that.
What follows me, man? It just...
Yeah, well, like I said, there's one more good team I'm going to get into here about the rankings here real soon. But no, other than that, 410 total yards, 173 passing, which was Reed, which I thought he done really well. And then most of their bulk come from their rushing crew, which had 237 of them yards. So,
yeah, like you said, Marcel Reed, 16 for 29, which is a 55% completion rate, 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, 12 carries, 91 yards. Le'Veon Moss, 16 carries, 90 yards, and 1 fumble loss. Nick Scroton, 6 tackles, 5 solos, and 1 tackle for losses. It was all over the field that game, which it was Bowling Green. But give the props to the defense for coming up late,
Right. I just, like I said, really Texas A&M, you're going to have to do a little bit better to keep this. I mean, I understand it's Bowling Green. You really... I don't say you didn't perform as well as you could or you underperformed, I think, mostly here. But with Marcel just now being a freshman, we're gonna have to do better for him if y'all want to stay ranked.
I think going forward, the right choice is Marcel Reed. Let's be real.
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, I don't know how long Connor's going to be out, but
this is a good backup for Texas A&M. So let's.
It is. Now, whether one of them goes to transfer portal next year, that it is what it is. But for right now, I think you have a decent problem to work with. They ain't great quarterbacks. Like, when we get down to Texas, they have the good problem.
They have
a
good problem to have.
But let's move on. As the Akron Zips travel down to South Carolina in a final score of 50-7 in favor of the Gamecocks, Robbie cashes in.
For you people who didn't know, the Akron are Kangaroos.
Right, just found that out last week on the episode.
Right, we learned something. Yeah, Robbie Ashford is really QB1. He did it all for them. Passing touchdown, rushing touchdowns. I don't think he can be I don't want to keep something like a Cam Newton's type, just a one that does it all for your team and gets you there, because South Carolina's defense is really good. Total yards, 549. Their numbers on passing and rushing were almost identical, with 276 passing and 273 rushing. But yeah, Robbie looked better than he has in a lot of situations.
Yeah, Robbie Ashford, 15 for 21, 71%, like you said. 243 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 16 carries on the ground, 133 yards and 1 touchdown. Good Lord. And then just to clean up some more stats here, Oscar Attaway the second, 14 carries, 42 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Stat here, and I forgot to look it up, I meant to. Rocket Sanders, 1 carry, 1 yard. That was all. Don't know what happened.
Do you think there was some injury there? Or?
But if you also look at the rest of their stats, not a lot of their start, like Debo Williams only had 1 tackle.
Do you maybe think they kept them out to keep them fresh?
That's what I'm thinking. Dylan Stewart only had 1 tackle. Kennard had like 4 or 5. So, like I said, I didn't watch it. I don't know if you did. Apparently not.
I peeked in at it here and there, but I said I'm looking at it now, and I really don't see. Lenore Sellers, yeah, it looks like they got injured.
That's a lot of injuries to have.
Yeah, well, it says injuries updates on Rocket Sanders and Lenore Sellers.
Dang.
Yeah, that hurts. Yep, he had a left ankle injury in the second drive.
Yeah, that hurts to have. Like I said, that's just. I was looking at that, and I meant to look it up, but that hurts going forward.
That was one of my notes. I had to see how good Sellers and Rocket could do, but it looks like Shane Beamer wasn't too bad. He's just a small ankle tweak, and he should be ready next week again. Well, they're off next week, so he'll have plenty of time to.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Before they go to Ole Miss.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern traveled down to Ole Miss in a final score of 52-13. The Black Bear Rebel Land Sharks.
The Lane train was pumping this week. 52-13. Again, like we said, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Jordan, whoever. It was really, again, dark all game. Just still playing weaker opponents, but that's going to flip around next week once we get into SEC play. Total 607 yards, 388 passing, 219 on the ground. So pretty well-rounded attack for the Land Rebels.
I like that one.
Right.
Jackson Dart, 22 for 31, 71%, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns once again.
Yeah.
1 interception. Henry Parrish Jr., 13 carries, 89 yards, and 1 touchdown. Oh, there was my headline. Trey Harris, 11 receptions, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. He finally gets some touchdowns. Glad to see that Trey Harris has been having a great year receiving the ball. Glad to see him get some more touchdowns in. Chris Paul Jr., 10 tackles, 7 solos, a half of a sack, 2 tackles for losses as Ole Miss stays hot right before SEC play.
Right, that defense is settled. They've only allowed 22 points all season, and 13 of them were here. So really,
look at they played. that stat I won't get into because they not played anybody. Now, if you want to pull me that stat for the game of the week, then we can talk something. But
I get it, but like I said,
it's still a fun stat to have and I guess to say, but I'm not behind that fully.
No. Well, the one alarming thing about this game, they still had 11 penalties for 135 yards.
I don't want to talk about penalties.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've already had that slight discussion earlier, but no, like I said, that's a small thing you can clean up. You know, you're going on you're at home next week still, but
again, that's something good to have.
Yeah.
We're going to get them in this time. Louisiana Monroe traveled down to number 1 Texas and playing in Austin as 51-3 is the final score going in favor of the Longhorns. And have a day, Blue. Jaden Blue's big rushing game. Jaden Blue, 25 carries, 125 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, just, for as many starts as they have, and for I won't say a nobody that, because we always talking about Arch and Ewers, but he really played well and got the yards that, how many touchdowns did you say? 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, Jaden Blue, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, Arch started this game, and he didn't play bad. He had 2 passing touchdowns and also 2 picks, but this is his first start in the game, kind of getting into the rhythm. I expected that, but Texas Longhorns 4-0 as they should be. Again, this goes back to, what their hardest game was Michigan, and we see how well that's worked out for them.
Michigan won this week.
Oh, man.
They beat South Carolina. The other USC.
Try again.
USC.
Yeah, the Trojans.
Yeah, the other USC.
Yeah, the Reggie Bush ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, total yards for the Longhorns, 495, almost hit that 500-yard mark, 258 in the air, 239 on the ground, which a lot coming from Blue, which exciting to watch as he's getting more involved and being able to make these big runs and gathering some touchdowns.
Yeah, Arch Manning, 15 for 29, 51%, really roughed up a little bit, kind of. 258 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, though, so, but luckily...
He is human.
Right. We're all... Well, we can talk about that one later.
Oh, yeah.
But, Louisiana Monroe, you're not wanting to see the 2 interceptions here, but, luckily you did play somebody like Louisiana Monroe for this to happen, and then Jaden Blue to pick up your slack and have those 3 touchdowns.
Right. To have an well-rounded team is when somebody struggles, somebody can pick you up. As when Ewers went down, Manning stepped up, and when Manning struggled just a little bit, Ball was able to take over and really just kind of round it out.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really got more on Texas.
There's not much. It was, they're 4-0. And I think,
like you said, it's a good problem they have here. Is it who you want, Quentin Ewers or you want Arch Manning?
Well, I'm glad they can close their eyes and pick a quarterback, but
right.
For y'all who can't see it, I just got the death stare from across the screen.
I did forget that visual. If you want to see us, we are now on YouTube. So if you do want to just go watch the podcast as itself, we are on YouTube, Spotify. You can listen to us, and on YouTube you can go and actually watch what we have. Like what we're seeing on the screen is what you can see, and then you can see the lovely faces of the Under Review podcast as a unit.
Was it BBDs?
Yeah, the big bearded duo. It's just I don't know. We're trying to find something new. We're getting a little bit more content out there, so try to put that out there so visual learners can actually see and see what we're going off of. And I don't.
We'll go back to like Hunter and Nick over at the dad pod. They got the faces for radio, so
yeah, they can stay on the radio. Love you guys. Let's get into our 5 games of the week here, and as we start first, y'all already know we got one, and here it comes. It's the Under Review podcast. nightmare game of the week.
That was my good ears.
Well, you don't have any. Florida traveled down to Stark Vegas in a final score of 45-28 as Florida gets the victory here.
Yeah, we weren't looking much into as this already being the dumpster fire that it was going to be. Right.
Go Florida! Yay!
Somebody pat Napier on the back. But no, I watched this game, and it was hard to watch. There was no fluidity through the ball game because Mertz really, to me, Mertz outplayed Lagway. But the thing was with Napier, he always said that he wanted to keep getting Lagway in there. But I thought it didn't keep Florida's momentum going. Even on that, they still had 503 yards. Passing was 277, and on the ground was 266, which was about half and half. But man, it was just awful to watch as far as. But we knew that going in. This was, I think, the two bottom of the barrel teams that we had going at it. I mean, the score 45-28 looks a little thing, but if you had to watch the whole game for 3 hours, it was not very pleasing.
Fun fact, they was playing this game all over Auburn for some reason. Everywhere you turned, you were watching this game before the actual Auburn game. So it was only even in the stadium before the game, which was weird. I guess it's SEC, and they was just
that was the only game on, I think, SEC that early.
It was SEC was it was, but like I said, 45-28 in favor of the Gators. I guess that's. That's where Gatorade came from. Graham Mertz, 19 for 21. 19 for 21. Let me say that again. Graham Mertz, 19 for 21. Also don't have it on here. But DJ Lagway went perfect. He went 7 for 7.
But still, I think Napier either has to sit down with both his quarterbacks and be like, hey, you're number one, you're number two. And I think Mertz is the guy because he really had some decent drives later on in the game, where they scored the heavy end of their points. But, yeah, that was when I was watching that first half, and when they come back out and Mertz had a really good drive, and then halfway through it he put Lagway in, and Lagway struggled or just couldn't make a quick decision. But there was no fluidity. I think both of these teams are still in for a long year, especially since the big news that we talked about, that Blake Shapen is done for the year.
Yep, ACL.
That's really going to hurt Mississippi State. If they already wasn't hurting, this is going to be really a nail in the coffin unless something magical happens. But Shapen was one of their bright spots. I hate to see somebody go out on a season-ending injury like that. And Shapen was one of my favorites that I didn't know once we started the year, but watching him play, I think he can develop. But, man, I hate that.
974 yards for Blake Shapen on the year and 8 passing touchdowns, and he is out for the season. So Bulldogs need to look elsewhere as they get ready for this rough and tough SEC conference. Let me finish off here. 90%. He went 201 passing yards. He had 3 touchdowns. Then Montrell Johnson Jr., 15 carries, 88 yards, 1 fumble loss. Triquez Bridges, 10 tackles, 5 solos. And then Blake Shapen went 13 for 21 at 62%, 140 yards. Isaac Smith, 8 tackles and 2 solos as Florida wins convincingly.
Yeah, it's like I said, you really, especially you have no winners here because they still got a quarterback controversy in Florida. Mississippi State now has one going forward. I think both teams are in for a long year. Florida maybe has 1, possibly 2 more wins in them, just looking at their schedule. But they got Central, well, they're off this week, then Central Florida. Then the rest of it is all SEC until they go to Tallahassee for the Seminoles.
You talk about a dumpster fire. I heard that game will be played at 8 a.m. on PBS. Did you hear that?
Or it could be a CW game.
That's funny. I'm sorry. If you haven't yet seen the TCU troll of being on the CW, it's funny. Go watch it. I don't know what it is with the CW.
I think it's crazy to say, but I think Nickelodeon has better graphics and stuff when they do theirs.
The NFL games, yeah.
Yeah, that's silly in itself. I do like a good SpongeBob joke, but
I don't know. The Toy Story game the NFL game last year was pretty
that was
good.
pretty. I'm a big Toy Story fan, so
Yeah, that was a good one. But the CW, that's funny.
and like I
I'm
said, we
sorry.
talked about last. I didn't even know they had football. I remember some of the wrestling and all that, but I never knew they had football till you said something about it
I don't
earlier.
think it's really been like big and active until this year. That's why it's
Well,
such a big deal.
I'd rather watch the Emmys than watch that, and you know how I feel
Yeah.
about that.
Not an upset alert, but somebody's in trouble, and that will be the Auburn Tigers. Final score 24-14 as Razorbacks go into Jordan-Hare Stadium. Tigers are in trouble, man. Now, let me talk about this one for a little bit.
Let you get stirred up, then I'll get stirred up, and then we'll both be pissy at the end.
Well, I was at the game. And, you're probably going to hear a lot of people out there saying, oh, you're Auburn fans. You're going to argue about the referees. There were some holding calls that wasn't called where he body slams the Auburn defender while he's before the ball is passed. That's a flag. That's holding. The late hit out of bounds was bullcrap because the ball was uncatchable. DPIs, if that was a blanket, that was a snuggie because he was on him. It's just, at one point in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter, as a unison, 83,000 fans in the stadium, as a unison, were chanting, refs, you suck, because everybody could see it. Even Arkansas fans were getting on. They're like, man, this is an awful game. There was 2 Alabama fans at the game yesterday. He said, man, these refs are terrible. Y'all should have won that game. I'm like, why are you even at our game, first of all? But, it's the ref game part 2, to me, it was just terrible.
Yeah, like I said, I don't play too much now. The SEC, the South Carolina LSU game, I don't know if I understand it's a hard job. I wouldn't want to do it, but, to be that bad on a constant level, this is almost 2 or 3 weeks in a row, not just for Auburn, like I said, the LSU South Carolina game, and I've seen other games that just some of the most obvious penalties were not taken, but, at the beginning of this was a measuring stick game. Who fell better on the measuring stick? Well, it definitely wasn't Auburn. And, we didn't see Arkansas being that good either, but they got the better of this side. There was 7 turnovers in this ball game. Of course, Auburn had 5 of them, which really just made me want to blow my lid. Arkansas had 2. You look on paper, Auburn had 285 passing yards on 146 rushing yards for 431 to Arkansas's 334 total yards, 151 in the air and 183 on the ground, which it just grinds my dadgum gears that I understand for Hank Brown. He is a redshirt freshman. I get it. He's going to struggle. Then they pulled the plug. Peyton had that one good drive where he went down and scored. And then it went back to the 4 and out, the silly passes and this, that, and the other. It rattles my head. Now, I'm not going to jump off the bandwagon, but because I'm Auburn through and through. Both teams still have so much better to get to even, I think, finish above 500. And that stinks for me because I'm passionate about Auburn and it just drives me nuts. And everybody's already wanting to call for freeze this, that, and the other, which I'm not.
Our Potato Man set us back 5 years. He's got to get some time, man.
Right, and I
love you freezing. I can't stand the slander. Like it utterly pisses me off to the max because this man is coming and he's giving his heart. Like, granted, some of the play calling is his fault. Like he said, hey, if we mess up on play calling, that's on me. Okay, blame him for that. Let's not blame him for all the other actions. Defense stepped up this week and
most definitely
played great. They did. But first, before we get into the stats and everything, I want you to look at this play that I got on the screen. And this was one of the plays that cost them. It was a 59-yard touchdown pass, or however long. And if you can see right here on Kendall Falk, right here on the edge, closest towards us, and he rolls out. Is that not a hold?
I think he needs to get an examination after that. Yeah, because
is that not a hold? Like that just.
Yeah,
Oh,
and we're going to catch crap for this, because we're Auburn fans, we're always going to find something to complain about. But no, that's just indirect. Even me watching the last games, not Auburn games, but still another one that just drives me bonkers is that LSU South Carolina game.
yeah.
How blatant them calls were and silly stuff like that. But I don't know. It was a measuring stick game, and I think both teams struggled a lot, but Arkansas did just enough to get by.
Yeah, it was a measure stick game for sure, but at the same time, for both teams, if the refs get in your way, I don't know what to tell you. If you have this group or you have the LSU group from 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry because it just pisses me off.
Yeah. Well, score wise, I mean, they was fairly evenly matched. I mean, Arkansas had a few more better plays, but our question going into this week was so many questions for this game. And the crazy part is there's still so many more questions after this game.
Right.
I don't think there's a quarter controversy in Auburn. I just think we need to find one, whether if it's Hank Brown, Peyton, whoever, because
Holden Grenier, Walker White, whoever it is,
let all be throw the dadgum football, but it's not getting any easier because Auburn jumps off Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Vandy the next 6 weeks. So
yeah,
and we'll be lucky to scrape one win out of there if things don't line up right.
Yeah. Taylor Green went 12 for 27, 44 passing yards. He did not even play well. This is what I was telling you earlier. Like 151 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on 18 carries for 80 yards. And our biggest question was, can we stop Jaquindon Jackson? 22 carries, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. His 2 touchdowns were really close, so he didn't really break one.
Right, and
75 yards. We kept him under 100, so that we did what we needed to do.
Right, but that's the thing. We strong-armed him, but then every time you turn around, Green ran, the 3 or 4 big run plays he has when he tried to super kick the linebacker and all that kind of stuff.
That was funny because he got wrecked. And the same man, as I got slandered for this one. The same thing with Champ Anthony. People saying that his injury was solidified because what he did. Man, get out of here. It was a clean hit. He didn't hit him with his helmet. He hit him with his shoulder and his arms. That is the cleanest hit you can get nowadays because people want to call about CTE and helmet-to-helmet contact and targeting this and targeting that. Smoke Monday would have been fined, ejected, and wouldn't be able to play for 4 games if he hit like that.
Oh, most of that. And that's what I thought. That was
one of the cleanest hits that you can allow in this day and age in college football, and he did it. And he's getting harsh for it because he stood over it. Man, it's a big hit. He didn't know he was hurt at that point.
Right. And for me, the same as well is because, it looked bad because he knocked his helmet off. But that was, like you said, it was.
That stadium blew.
For me, it did. But, it was just a good, clean hit. It wasn't in the head area. It was perfect. I thought it was a well hit. But then people want to say, oh, well, he got what he deserved, because allegedly he broke his leg the next play.
Broke his leg. It was so bad. ESPN didn't even replay the shot. And if you can actually try to go back and watch it. When he does it, he is at the very end of the corner of the screen, and it's like he's right outside the camera angle, so you can't see what his legs does. Because I tried to go back and watch it today.
I
haven't found a single
video. I haven't either. Well, this is the same people that said they wouldn't play that, but yet when Prothro snapped his leg out of his. And then, what was it? Was it Duke a couple years ago at the basketball game?
You're thinking Louisville. It was a long time ago.
Louisville, yeah. Short kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's beside the point. But hope he gets better. I hate to see a young kid go down like that. But overall, this could have been our nightmare game because it was for me. But I think there's more questions to be answered. And if either Arkansas or Auburn don't figure it out, the next 5 and 6 weeks are going to be miserable to be a fan for either one of them teams.
Right, let me finish up these stats. Nico Slaughter, 7 solos, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses, and 1 interception. Peyton Thorne, who played a big game coming in after Hank Brown threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter. Peyton Thorne, 13 for 22, 59 yards, 59% completion rate, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. Still threw an interception, though. Jarquez Hunter, 12 carries, 62 yards. But the big game from Keandre Lambert-Smith, 5 receptions, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Honestly, we wouldn't even have been in that game if it wasn't for Lambert-Smith doing what he was doing.
Yeah, he made now one that drove me nuts as well is the long touchdown we ran by DeMonte.
Who?
Number 0.
Austin, yeah, and he
that where he
fumbled.
fumbled 3 yards before he gets to the end zone. Anyway, let's go to another game.
Quarterbacks want to throw it to the team, and we got our players, our running backs that don't even want to hold on to the ball. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And that's the sad thing. We're Auburn fans too.
I mean, we're the biggest critics, but
like
we still got more games to go on, so let's carry on.
Well, keep Freeze, and hopefully we won't lose recruits because Deuce was there. So
yeah. All right, hit us with this one.
Who is this one?
This is.
Oh, I got you. Number 7, Mizzou against the unranked Vanderbilt Commodores, which should have been a blowout. My headline here is, did you just get exposed, Mizzou? Because I think you did. I mean, yes, you still won the ball game. Thank you, sir. You still won the ball game, but you played piss poor. Your kicker was 3 for 6, and he could have got this game way before it even went to 2 overtimes. Mizzou had 442 total yards on 226 in the air, 216 on the running game. On the other side, Vandy, 324 total, 168 in the air, and 146 on the ground. I mean, Pavia played well. I thought he kept them in the game as close as he could. But still, Missouri, I mean, still, again, not drinking your Kool-Aid. I think you were super exposed here. And it's gonna come out when you go to, well, you don't even have a good game till, I mean, you play Auburn in a couple weeks. But then you go to Tuscaloosa, so you might keep your winning streak but a few more weeks, but you won't finish high in the SEC.
No, and with that, I was watching some of that because, when our game got over and we was walking to the car, I looked up, it's 20-20, and they're in the fourth quarter. If you caught any of that game going into the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly, because I was walking, cell service at a college game. It's not very typically well. So I was skipping a lot of parts. But Vanderbilt had a shot to put this game over in regular.
They did.
And they fumbled.
They did. Yep.
They just fumbled it, man. And I was like, man, you were so close.
Well, and the only reason Missouri...
Go ahead.
The only reason Missouri won is because Vandy's kicker choked.
Yeah. But if you... Remember what I said in the pregame. Was Vanderbilt looking forward to this Missouri Tigers team? And you can tell they definitely was because they came in, they was ready. They battled. Just the chokeness of a kicker, and it hurts to say, but that's college football. You put a lot of pride on your kickers because late in games, that's when you want them. They're supposed to have the iron leg, the icy hot leg.
I really thought this was an ID game for both, but I was overly proud of Vanderbilt. They stuck in there. They hung with the number 7 team, all besides 2 overtime. I think Vanderbilt learned a lot about their team.
Yeah.
And they got the fight. They are the dog, They will come and play. And then for the ID for the Tigers, I didn't see it. And again, we've said since week 1 and 2 that Mizzou is not that great of a team. They've squeaked by here and there, but
I've never been a part of them this year. And you
say I haven't either since week 1.
Which I mean, I can agree too because I'm not, and I haven't been this whole season.
No,
but
no,
it's just
until they show me something against a really good opponent.
Beating Auburn still not showing me. I don't care what you say.
Unless Auburn does something and goes undefeated the next 2 games, beats Oklahoma and Georgia before that, which. Let's not too many put eggs in a basket, but I don't, exactly. It could happen.
It could happen. 27-30 in favor of them 7 Mizzou Tigers in double overtime. Diego Pavia, 14 for 23, 60%, 176 for passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 carries, 84 yards. Brian Longwell, 12 tackles on the defense and 6 solos and 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses. Brady Cook, 23 for 37, 62 yards, 226 62% completion rate. Jesus Christ, man. 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nate Noel, 24 carries, 199 yards. And then Luther Burden, the third, 6 receptions, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Marvin Burks Jr. on that defense with 12 tackles.
But overall, this was a really good game to watch. We flipped it over and watched most of it. And it was a good ball game. It was just Mizzou drives me nuts, and I just want Vandy to get over that hump and be that team that we know and don't get alarmed, Vandy fans. Stay in there. This is the best you've looked in years, so stay on that wagon.
Yeah. Welcome to the Under Review Podcast Interstate Game of the Week. As the number 12 Utah Utes battled out against number 14 Oklahoma State, as the Utes outlast the Cowboys 22-19. Utah held the ball. This was the biggest stat for me. Utah held the ball and controlled the game, holding the ball for 42 minutes and 26 seconds. Oklahoma State only had the ball for 17 minutes and 34 seconds. The 60-minute time frame of the game. That is controlling the ball. You should never lose if you have stats like that.
No, most definitely, because you can't score if you don't have the ball. So it makes for a slow game to watch. But if your defense ain't stopping them, how can your offense get on the field? And I was surprised because I really wanted to see Ollie Gordon just, light up like they did against Arkansas.
Yeah. And he only had 11 carries for 42 yards. But, if you're not touching the ball until 17 minutes of the whole game, not even a half. This was 17 minutes for 4 whole quarters. Not even two 10-minute quarters.
Well, and then you think Alex Bowman had 2 interceptions, so that give it right back to that slow down. We're going to score when we want to, and you can't do nothing about it. So I give some of this loss to the OSU defense.
But here's the thing, the true freshman for Utah, Wilson, he also had 2 interceptions, so he gave the ball right back to them.
I'm glad I didn't.
That would have been a game where I probably would have had an aneurysm on. I don't even know why.
Yeah. You should have been in the room. It looked way better on paper.
Yeah.
It really did.
But if you just go down and you actually look at the stats and be like, hey, this was the time of possession for this game, you could see they controlled the ball. They ran for 100. One running back, Bernard, had 25 carries for 182 yards. Just ran the ball. If you have a good running back, you might as well do it, right?
If you're getting 4 and 5 yards a carry, why stop? Because you don't need 10 yards for a first down. So, if you look at it, just look at the number just right here, 60-minute game, that was a good game. Back and forth. No, it wasn't that. Utah was up first, and then they really just kind of chipped away when they wanted to. And then Oklahoma State didn't score. They scored 16 points in the fourth quarter, so they trailed most of the ball game and then had a little bit of life in the end. But what can you do when you only have it 17 minutes?
Right. Their scoring drives, 12 plays, 62 yards, 5 minutes. 11 plays, 64 yards, 6 minutes. 5 plays, 69 yards in 3 minutes, and that was a field goal. 10 plays, 44 yards, 5.5 minutes. 1 play, 45 yards, 10 seconds. So what it's looking like was, even when they was their longest drives wasn't even when they were putting up points. It's just, Utah wins, beats us because we had Cowboys. Kind of upsetting, but
because I expected so much more from the Cowboys offense. But again,
great play.
If you don't have the ball, you can't score. So
great play by the Utes. They went in with a game plan, and it worked. 42 out of 60 minutes holding the ball. I'd want that from my team. I'll tell you that.
I could use more points, but
I like defense. Oh, I hit the wrong button. No wonder.
I was about to say.
Welcome to the Under Review Podcast Game of the Week as number 6 Tennessee traveled down to Norman, Oklahoma in Heupel's return. Final score 25-15 as Heupel is happy in his return to Norman.
Yeah, this was the heavyweight fight we've been waiting to see all year. The score kind of don't look like it at the end, but this ball game, I watched the whole, and this was a really good ball game. Defense on both sides really showed up. Tennessee had 11 tackles for losses on 3 sacks. Oklahoma had 9 tackles for losses on 3 sacks. This was just a really pounded game. I mean, Nico made some big plays. I think he had one touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay, but still, he still played excellent. I thought, Tennessee had 345 total offensive yards, 194 in the air, 151 on the ground. Two, where Oklahoma struggled just a little bit, 222 total yards, 186. But the biggest stat for the Tennessee side is they kept Oklahoma to only 36 rushing yards, which turned out to be pivotal in this win for the number 6 Volunteers.
22 of those were by their backup quarterback, but we'll get into quarterback play here in just 1 second as I run down some of these numbers. Nico, 13 for 21, 61%, 194 yards and 1 touchdown, 2 fumbles. Losses really not what we want to see from one of our Heisman contenders in this day and age, but that's what a real team will do to you.
Right. I was just about to butt in and say, this is the best team he's faced, and he still looked good. He had a few struggles, but nothing I don't think he can't fix. They got a bye week this week, so they can rest up. Then they'll go to Arkansas. But I think, a really overall good game for Nico, having a better team to play against.
Dylan Sampson, also one of the highest on my Heisman card, 24 carries, 92 yards, and 1 touchdown. Michael Hawkins, which was the backup quarterback for Oklahoma, 11 for 18, 61 yards, 61%, 132 yards, 1 touchdown, 12 carries for 22 yards, as Jackson Arnold was pulled for bad quarterback play with 2 fumbles lost and 1 interception.
Yeah, well, again, they both struggled. Hawkins did look a little bit better, but they both struggled, and I think overall through the game, this really led to Oklahoma not being able to put up more points on this really tough Tennessee defense.
Like I said, it was interesting to watch. It was.
It was. I was. I'm glad this was our game of the week. It was a really good ball game to go back and forth, especially when one team was struggling and getting all this. Just really good ball game to watch.
Yeah. But I give it to Tennessee. All right. First of all, if you watched our episode that came out on Thursday and you listened to me very closely and you betted all your money and you lost, I am so sorry. I was not on my high horse this week. I went 1 for 9 this week. My picks were out there this week. I don't know what happened. I guess I had more faith in teams than I shouldn't have faith in. That won't happen again. If you ever betted on me, I'm sorry. Don't ever put your money where my mouth is.
Yeah, because I didn't do as bad, but I struggled with a few games that was close, and I probably picked Auburn because I was an Auburn fan, giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I promise you, I won't do it again.
Right.
I'm still if you guys are in our pick 'em or no, I'm still number 1, but only by 2 games. So, but no. Oh, just a side note too, Uncle Todd, our guest picker was right.
Of course, like she always is.
Well, yeah, Sissy did pick the winning team. Not so much the score, but. It was still within 10 points.
Was closer than my score.
Yeah. But, again, Tennessee was tested here. They prevailed like they did. Super good ball game. I think that was the best way to end our week 4 with some of the travesties and whatnots we had to watch through the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Just a side note, did you go to bed after this game, or did you catch any of the Colorado game?
I was doing notes during I had you know how my setup is. I had the screen that I produce on. It had the Colorado game, and then I was doing notes on my computer.
Yeah, we went to the bed after, but I had turned it on just to catch the last bit because I knew it was close, and that was a really good ball game. I hate that Colorado won, but as you know, I've got Shedeur in my my fantasy team.
Yeah,
but it was a really interesting ball game to win it on the last play, the last drive to go into overtime, and then
he had 2 chances, and the first one I was like, man, he missed it, and I was like, but he didn't throw it to the end zone either. But the running back, the wide receiver, stopped and jumped and just
he made it. Yeah, he made a good play. That was all it was.
The first one, he missed it.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking about the 2 seconds
left. That ball was like this close from hitting the ground. He said.
Yeah, he got it. And then to lose, on 4th down, fumble in the end zone. But I'm not a Colorado fan.
Ain't that how Auburn won a couple years ago against Missouri?
Yeah, but it's Auburn and Colorado. I give money to Auburn. I could care less about Deion Sanders and his hype train.
Yeah. Let's get in these stat standings and let's roll out. Stat standings as usual at the end of the review podcast. As passing yards leader, Jackson Dart stays at top from Ole Miss at 1,554 yards. And always in second is Garrett Nussmeier from the LSU Tigers at 1,247 yards. And then finally, next week, we'll actually have a different person at this spot, maybe. Blake Shapen goes out for the season with a torn ACL as from the Mississippi State Bulldogs at 974. Passing touchdowns leader is Garrett Nussmeier at 13. Number 2 is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss at 12. And then Milroe, who didn't play this week, Shapen, and Ewers all at 8, tied for third. Rushing yards leader is once again Jaquindon Jackson from Arkansas with 472 yards. Dylan Sampson's in second, very close behind him at 449 yards. And then Nate Noel, after a big game, almost rushing for 200 yards this week, from Missouri, Nate Noel in the 3 spot at 441 yards. Rushing touchdowns, still the leader at number 1, Dylan Sampson at 10. Jaquindon Jackson with 2 more this week, pushing him at second with 8. And then rounding out number 3 is Henry Parrish Jr. from Ole Miss at 7. And now let's get into some receiving yards. Trey Harris stays at top from Ole Miss at 625. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, 348. And then after a big week from Keandre Lambert-Smith, moves him inside the top 3 from Auburn at 338. And then finally, your receiving touchdowns as Lambert-Smith added 2 to tie Lacey from LSU at 5 at 1 spot. I know, right? Burden III, Harris, Antonio Wells Jr., and Ryan Williams, who did not play this week, all at 4, tied at second. And then we have 5 people that are tied for third with 3. And that is standings.
Yeah. Decent week of football, but fans, be ready. Next week I think it's going to be the best week for football we have. I'm just going to go ahead and say our game of the week is most definitely the Dogs going into Tuscaloosa. I mean, what else is there to be? We have all SEC games but one. LSU goes to South Alabama, but this is going to be the best week of SEC football that we've had.
Don't count out South Alabama.
Oh, no.
It might be in Death Valley, but South Alabama, me and Brandon was talking about this the other day. South Alabama was good. After losing 2 games, he lives down there. They're season ticket holders. They're looking good right now. Again, it is LSU, so it could go either way. LSU might overlook them. South Alabama could sneak out a win. We'll get more than that on Thursday. I'm really hot.
Because I always remember if Brandon would come over, he'd be at the house, and he would always use South Alabama for his team, do their dynasty and stuff. So he's always been a South Alabama fan. But like I said, next week, really good SEC games, Arkansas and Texas Tech, Auburn, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and then the big game, Georgia and Alabama. I'm excited to talk about that, and I think we got some really good insight for that game.
Yeah, like always, your code for this week is BDB. Big Dog Battle.
Is that a hint to something?
Could be.
Dun-dun-dun.
Who knows? But like we said, sorry, I'm distracted. I'm tired as not get out.
We got till you can't breathe.
My eyes were floating with meat up there.
You had the Chuck meat sweats.
My stomach was hard, man. I pooped 3 times while I was in there. Sorry about it. Don't care about it. It was just rough, man. But like I said, we love y'all here at the Under Review Podcast. BDB, Big Dog Brawl coming soon. But yeah, we're glad that y'all listen. We're glad, sorry we didn't really get no post in this week. We'll do more of that next week. But like I said, as always, God loves you. We love you here. God bless from the Under Review Podcast. And always remember, keep your flag handy. If I can ever find it. I wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready.
Thanks for making the call to go Under Review. Join us next time as we go to the monitors. Until then, keep your flag handy.